Okay, I hope, oops, are we live? Okay, I hope that this works this time. I'm not sure if it will. I think I've got it working. So basically for the last 7 minutes that thought I was live streaming, even though it was telling me that I wasn't live streaming, I was talking to myself for about 8 minutes straight. And I was wondering why nobody was commenting. I had a few people here. I'm knocking things down. Hi, Maya. Am I pronouncing your name right? Is it Maya or Maya? I'm not good at pronouncing names. I get fired very easily for that. No one would actually ever hire me to broadcast anything regarding like a list of names. You know, graduation ceremonies where you have to read off everybody's name, which is a horrific job. Maya. Okay, great. Great. So welcome to my live stream. It's not very fancy. Last time as in a few minutes ago when I was streaming to nobody, I was basically telling people about my past 2.5 weeks and hopefully going through to where you guys are. And I wanted to ask you guys how you're feeling. Hopefully you're healthy and well, because I have not been diligent as far as talking to you guys on a very consistent basis. So I want to say not only hi, but also make sure that you guys are doing well. So let me know in the comments or in the chat, actually, how you're feeling and if everything's okay with you and your family and friends, because I'm very concerned about just everybody and everybody's health and how they're dealing with the situation. I think it's very important that we kind of come together as a community, because it seems like, you know, the people that we trusted to at least kind of help us through a crisis like this just are not going to be there, particularly the United States government, you know, if you ever trusted them in the first place. That being said, over the past 2.5 weeks, I have been quite ill. And I guess for about half a week, I had come down with kind of the quintessential symptoms of coronavirus. I started with a sore throat. I started coughing a lot. And speaking of, excuse me, very dry cough. It's very unpleasant. It's not very productive. And that happened for about half a week. And then on Saturday, I checked my temperature to see if I had a fever or not. And I did. I was about at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I am feeling better now, thank goodness. I then went through a whole week of having a fever, unfortunately, if not longer, to where finally about yesterday is when my fever broke. And so since then, I have actually been feeling a lot better. I was able to get a coronavirus test, even though it's in very limited supply. I'm really not sure how that ended up working out for me, but it did. And it did come back negative. But I have subsequently spoken with the doctor because I was just too sick to not believe that it was not this virus that's going about right now. It doesn't make sense to me. All the symptoms were very consistent. I went through the same patterns that have been reported, to where one day I was feeling, okay, yeah, I'm getting through this. And then I crashed the next day. Just all of the things I was experiencing, to which my doctor told me that there was about up to a 25% false negative rate on these tests right now. This is a problem with all the tests at least in the United States. I'm not really sure elsewhere if that's the case. So even if you're fortunate enough to get a test, if you're starting to feel under the weather like I was, it still may not be reliable right now for you, because that's literally about a quarter of the test, right? A quarter of people that have been tested that were probably positive, but it came back negative. So they went back out to their communities and have subsequently infected even more people, most likely, especially if it was, quote unquote, as mild as mine was, which I would not call mine particularly mild. I have asthma, so that would be an underlying condition that would, I guess, lead to want to know definitively if you have this or not. You're at risk for developing pneumonia, especially if you have an underlying health condition like asthma. You maybe, if you're a former smoker, that's the same risk there. And so I just want to make sure that everybody knows that, because I did not know that when I was going in to have this test. I thought it was pretty much foolproof. I know that there is some level of false negatives anyways, just because I did some stuff with, well, it doesn't matter what I did stuff with. Just there's always some sort of rate that is going to misread or give you the wrong results. But usually it's relatively low, but this is substantially high considering how vital it is to know if you actually have this illness or not. And I'm sorry, I hope it's not too loud for you there. I am coughing, and I hope you forgive me for that. That being said, I also wanted to kind of move on to where I'm sitting as far as what I kind of see in my life. If you happen to follow me on my personal Twitter account, you probably have known me to be quite political. I do a lot of political activism, or I have been. It's probably how I got sick, actually. I was a delegate selector for Bernie Sanders delegates in my state, or I guess even in my district. And so I had to go and become a delegate selector and then vote on the delegates to send to Wyoming. Is somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, pretty much, for the DNC, or the Democratic National Convention. That's going to be in July or August or whenever the hell it is. I should know this, but I don't right now. Anyways, so that's what I was doing. That's probably how I got sick. Where was I going with this again? I don't know. What was I talking about, guys? Milwaukee. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that it was Milwaukee. It's Milwaukee, which is pretty much out in the middle of nowhere, I think. I think it is. Maybe someone can correct me there too. I don't get out much. So it is I can definitively point to where I get sick from because of the fact that I don't expose myself a lot to other people. I'm fortunate enough to be home often. I just have a really good situation there. I'm fortunate enough to have health insurance. And I know that if you're from the United States, you are probably worrying about these things right now. You're worrying about your employment status and if you can maintain health insurance, because I think it's kind of projected that at least 75 to 80% of the US population will get infected by this virus. Now, will you have as extreme symptoms as I had? Probably not, especially if you don't have underlying health conditions like asthma. So we just need to take care of each other and come together as a community. That's kind of why I wanted to just chat with you guys. It is not just kind of, it is the main reason why I wanted to chat with you guys, because I don't know about you, but I am lonely and I'm angry at the situation. I'm frustrated, obviously. I think that we could have done a better job as a society. It's just because I don't know what's our problem, honestly. I don't know why we put trust in people as far as running our entire country, who are just absolutely incompetent and selfish psychopaths. I really don't understand that. Maybe you guys have a better explanation for me here, because I have been mulling this over and over, and I just cannot figure it out why we continue to make these really ridiculous mistakes as just a species. Like, why is it that we keep doing the same things over and over again, and they're always the wrong ones? We fix the things that don't need fixing, but we never fix the things that do need fixing. And that makes no flipping sense to me. Excuse me again, I apologize. And so I'm going about warning here. I'm going to get political. My point, I think, to the other thing was that if you follow me on my personal Twitter account, you know that I am quite political. If you do not follow me on my personal Twitter account, that is probably for the best for you, because that's all I talk about is politics. I am a socialist. I will tell you right now that that is where my frame of reference is coming from. And this is what I believe, that we can build a better society based off of some principles that I understand about socialism, if not kind of reaching into more of a communism type of thing. I do believe that egalitarianism is far more conducive to a productive society than a hierarchical model like the model that we live in, which is a very greedy model, if you think about it. We live under a capitalist system. And if you are from, again, the United States, you probably understand that living under a capitalist system, when it comes to healthcare, is probably not a good idea. And this has been borne out time and again, but it's specifically problematic when we have an epidemic and we have the most vulnerable, weakest members of our society unable to get the help that they need. And when we have an epidemic that has a transmission rate as high as it does, and as easily as it is capable, you get it via breathing. It's not something that you can just wash away from your hands. If you're around someone who has this, that's sharing your environmental air with you, you have a high likelihood of contracting this illness. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that is my frame of work or frame of reference here. It's essentially why I started my YouTube channel, was living off of a more socialist model, because I did not think it was fair for me to, well, maybe not fair is even the right word. I just could not live with myself having all of this knowledge. And I, admittedly, I live again in the United States, where we don't get college for free. We go into massive amounts of debt just to get higher education, especially if you don't have a family member who can pay your way through college. I was fortunate enough to get into an Ivy League school for undergraduate and get a nice scholarship for that. But it still didn't pay everything. I had to pay out of pocket a lot of the time. I went to graduate school, and again, I got a stipend for that, but I had to pay out of pocket for books, for just everything. In fact, you have to get a loan, at least in my school. You have to get a loan just to pay back, just to pay for your courses first. So you have to get the loan in totality of your tuition, and then hopefully pay back that loan, which I never fucking did. Excuse me. I'm going to be cursing too. I've already said that this is not a child-friendly stream. And so if you have a problem with cursing, I'm not going to apologize for that, because that is just how I talk. So again, I have amassed all of this debt that I don't think it's appropriate for subsequent generations to ever have to live with. Debt for your entire life, essentially. And I have all of this knowledge in my head, and I have all of this knowledge, at least how to get resources and get information to you guys. And I wanted to share that, because I don't think that you should have to necessarily take coursework just to know what I know about the brain and behavior. That just doesn't, in no sensible world does that make sense to me, at any rate. And if I could be a part of the process to help your learning and to help nurture your interest in a field that people do shy away from, because they think of, oh my God, the brain, neuroscience, that's too hard. It's not. And I mean, I'm not a particularly smart person, and I was able to do it. And I just wanted to make sure that that people just had the knowledge that I had, because it's being wasted in my own head, right? I'm not in academia. I'm not sharing it with students. I'm sharing it with you guys. And I hope that, again, you find what the content that I have made and have created for you guys helpful and useful and interesting and entertaining to some extent. Again, I'm still recovering from this stupid thing that I am dealing with. So that was kind of my motivation, was just because of my political leanings to even create this channel in the first place. So that's where I am at. And so I think we have this, maybe I'm wrong, but I really think that this pandemic has highlighted the flaws in our own systems that we have and that we trust in, and that we, maybe held up to a very high standard. And it just seems like it's all crumbling down, it's crashing. In no sensible society should anybody go hungry. In no sensible society should anybody not have the basic necessities that they need to survive. Otherwise, what's the point? You know how I don't know if you went through school, like elementary school, if you remember this. Maybe this was a thing during my generation when we went through school, where we talked about needs and wants. This was elementary school. We always said, what is a need? Well, food, water, shelter. That's your basic needs. And clothing, admittedly, too. And then what are the wants? Well, I want to have a cell phone. I want to have a pencil, a nice fancy pencil to write with, so I can, do my alphabets, right? Or whatever. And, you go through that process, and then you realize we live in a society where the needs are not recognized as needs, if that makes any sense. So we die just because of the fact that we don't recognize these basic necessities that are essential for survival. And guess what? Healthcare is one of those things. Because without healthcare, what happens to you? You die. And you die needlessly a lot of the times. If it weren't for healthcare, for the healthcare that we've had and that we've had for a long time, people would have died in overwhelming numbers from the flu. And I think a lot of people are comparing the flu with coronavirus right now, which is a horrible comparison to make. We've got a pandemic in our mix. Yeah, people do die from the flu. It's a very low percentage of people. This is far outnumbered those percentages, sometimes by like over 50%. So this is a serious thing. And people that don't get access to the healthcare that they need aren't able to treat a condition like a virus that they catch from others who are unable to do the same. Well, you don't have a functioning society at that point. A society is mad. And here's my own kind of weird thing that I think of, and I understand that I'm not the only one who have thought of this, but I thought I was at the time when I came up with this, is that I believe that our societies kind of are its own organisms, and they die off, they thrive in some cases. And we live in a society that I feel could easily die off, because we are not acting like we live in a society. We're acting very like, oh, well, I have my individual life and fuck everybody else. Well, that's not how a society should run. Otherwise, what's the point of being in a society? A society is a collective of bodies that go for a general, that should work for the general well-being of everyone in that collective body. Otherwise, there's no point of having neighbors, or there's no point of any of this. There's no point of it. If you want to leave society behind, if you want to be that individualistic, by all means, go for that. But if you want to live in a society where, you have grocery stores that function, where you have fire departments that function, then maybe, just maybe, we should start considering how to better assure that our basic needs are met. And it makes me very angry that people don't understand this concept, and people have a problem with it. And they're like, well, you shouldn't live off the government. You're going to be a welfare queen. You're going to be so reliant on the government. Well, so the fuck what? What is it to you if Joey over here or Steve or Sandra, what is it to you if they're reliant on the government for help? Why does that impact you? Tax dollars? Because I'm sorry, your tax dollars are valueless unless goes towards something that benefits society. So if it's benefiting someone else's life and making it better, making sure that they survive in a society, then why not be okay with assuring that we have our basic needs met? Maybe it means we don't profitize our water systems. Those should not be for profit. Water is fucking free. It rains and it's free. There you go. Yet we have profitized it. So people in Flint, Michigan, they're suffering because of this profitized model. And all of our water systems in the United States are suffering. And that does lead me to another point where it's like, if we live in a functioning society and we believe that our tax dollars should go towards the greater good, then we should always have a say in that process, of course. But we don't. I have never seen anybody influence our tax dollars as much as billionaires have done so. But as far as me, I'm not a billionaire, I'm not a millionaire, I'm not even a thousandaire. I haven't been able to ring up my senator and say, hey, could you lower my taxes and increase it for the billionaires? Thanks, bye. I haven't been able to go, hey, could you not purchase this unneeded missile that will just go and bomb other countries we shouldn't be in war with? I haven't been able to do that, right? And so if you're concerned about your tax dollars going towards X, Y, and Z, you should be livid at the fact that you don't get to have a say in that process. That should make you angry. It makes me angry. It does. And then it makes me realize that nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about, the majority of the time, because they're allowed how they can hold these contradictions in their head and seem to not have any problem with it. They can hold all of these hypocrisies in their head and seem to not have a problem with it. And I have a problem with it. I have a problem when something contradicts something else. I mean, I was always the person that, was in my class being like, you said it like this the other time. Doesn't that contradict what you just said now? And everybody would roll their eyes and go, oh God, she's talking again. But I just don't like contradictions. And I think it's weird. Okay, you know what? I'm going to start paying attention to you guys and stop rambling so I can see what you're saying. Maya says that I don't understand why people tell me I shouldn't call politicians evil. They are. A lot of them are. I think so. In a state, in a country, in a society where we have decided that we're going to go based off of capitalism, which even the person that was a huge proponent of capitalism, basically designed the thing, theorized about it, basically said that over time this will fail. This will fail because this cannot thrive for everybody. And once people start realizing that this doesn't benefit the majority of people, that only benefits a select few, this will fall. And I think they're not wrong. We're living in a aristocracy that is just given another name, a capitalist democracy that isn't democratic very much, hardly ever. I mean, if you lived in a true democratic society, maybe you would have, I don't know, if you had bosses at all, you wouldn't have bosses, I don't think. But if you did happen to have bosses, maybe they wouldn't go, you know what, we should just get back to work and stop with this whole coronavirus thing. Your lives are not as important as money to me. By the way, money, we made it up. It doesn't exist. I can decide that this is now money. If we collectively decided that Post-its were now money, boom, money. And now it has value. This is all a concept in our head. And yet we're telling people to go to work. These billionaires are telling people, not we, but these billionaires are telling people, go to work, put your lives at risk for developing this illness, which has killed thousands of people. And I think it said by tomorrow, the United States will surpass Italy's death toll. So it's killing a lot of people. This is a very serious thing. Is it democratic that we have bosses that are demanding people to go to work, putting their lives at the risk, all for something we made up? And guess what? I don't know about you, but seeing my friend alive over here, me being alive, you guys being here alive and chatting to me, these are tangible. We didn't make this up. You guys, to the best of my knowledge in what I can understand as being reality, you guys exist. You guys really exist. People really exist. Lives, we cannot get them back. Once people are dead, they're dead. There's nothing we can do. And unless somebody knows of something else of how to bring people back from the dead, but I'm pretty sure we don't have that technology yet. So why is it that something we made up gets to decide if we live or die? Because that's what it comes down to. Is it worth it? We made this. We can decide, you know what, money is not a thing anymore. We're not going to allow this to dictate our lives. I know I sound like we can, but I really want us to do this, and I really think we should. Because these things do not matter. They only matter to the greedy billionaires who want to make a profit off of our own labor and want to basically tell us that, you know what, my profits are so much more important to me than anything else. You're going to die for this. Well, I didn't sign anything. I didn't sign anything for this. I don't want to die for you. You're meaningless to me. You won't even give me, a lunch break, an hour lunch break. You won't even give me sick leave when I'm sick. And you're asking me to put my life on the line so that you can get more profits. How dumb is this? Guys, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I know I'm railing, and I know some of you guys are just going to, not agree with me, and that's fine. I just want to maybe get through to somebody out there that maybe is kind of on the fence and maybe doesn't understand why people like me think the way that they do, or maybe never thought about the fact that we invented a concept called money. It's essentially meaningless if we invented the fact that it would be meaningless, because it is invented. But we didn't invent living beings. We didn't invent this. This is something that's weird. That's real, and we can feel it. We can feel each other. We can hug each other. You guys exist. You guys talk to me. I mean, we didn't invent that. I just guys, I'm like so angry. So thank you for allowing me to rant. I do appreciate that. And so back to Maya's point. Yes, I agree. You can totally call people evil when they behave in evil ways. And many of our politicians, I believe, do just that. I'm sorry, I'm going to probably mispronounce your screen name, so please let me know. eHeller42 basically says, also federal tax dollars don't pay for sizzle. They go on to say our tax dollars don't pay for anything on the federal level. It's public money. Fiat currency, and Congress can fund anything as long as resources exist. Exactly. This is a principle I think that has come into fashion now that people are starting to, I guess, realize that based off of the fact that if you are able to print your own money and basically are not connected with so many other financial things going on, if you're not like restricted to the gold standard, which the U.S. was on up until like sometime in the early, maybe I'm wrong, 1900s. If you're not restricted to that, there's a word for this. Somebody tell me what this word is. Self-reliant currency. I don't know what I don't remember the name of it. Sorry, guys. But if you have the ability to do those things and to print your own money and to not be on some sort of tangible system, if you're on a invented system like we are, then essentially you can't really run out of it. You can continue to fund the things that people need, like fiat currency. Thank you. You can fund whatever you want, and your tax dollars are just basically designed to give value to that currency, and that is it. It doesn't fund anything. And so people believe that it funds, at least on the federal level. Now on the state level and local level, sure, it does. It definitely funds those things, and that's why states can go bankrupt, because they rely on those funds, and when those tax dollars dry up, they have nothing. But usually they'll get supported by the federal government at some point, generally. Don't know. I don't know for sure. Hold on. Sorry. If you just joined me, thank you for joining me. I do want to know that I am still recovering from an extended illness that I do believe is coronavirus. And so there we go. States aren't allowed to print their own money, and that is why the states do rely on tax dollars, unlike the federal government that doesn't. And so that's where your tax dollars actually do fund, like, local road systems and your fire department systems. If we can just analogize everything that's a need, for instance, healthcare during a pandemic, it's a need. Let's just analogize that with, I don't know, the fire department being a need, right? You don't want people that can only pay for the fire department to come in and save their homes when everybody in the town will be affected regardless. So say one home doesn't burn down at the expense of everybody else's home that couldn't afford the fire department to come in and save their homes. Is that not like how we should view healthcare? And especially when a pandemic arrives, I just think it's nuts to think that you're immune from getting ill or having a very serious extended illness, if not dying, under these circumstances, if anybody in your system is uninsured or underinsured and cannot get the care that they need, because they do interact with everybody else. And so you will get sick if, you're only as healthy as a society as your, like, unhealthiest person who has no access to healthcare, who can't afford anything. Because at the end of the day, it can all come to you, regardless of if you personally can afford it. I just think it's absolute nuts that we live in a system where people think somehow they're immune to being sick when you're not. And you're specifically immune to being sick if you have money to pay for it. And y'all, don't get me started. I can talk about this stuff all day long. Let's see. Bacon for president makes a good point. Nationalize apple pies. I'm cool with that. Apple pies, I think, are a necessity too. Not a want, but a need. I don't really like pie though. I'm weird. I don't like chocolate either that much. But I love brownies. Don't get me wrong. I will eat me some brownies, but just general, like a candy bar, no thank you. Healthcare torrential rage says healthcare needs to be a utility. Our society is at a point where profits are getting in the way of preserving human life. Absolutely. And I think we kind of come to a point here. If we recognize that as a utility of our society to make sure our citizens are healthy, what else can be a utility in this fashion? What about food? I think food should be considered in that same fashion, because without it, guess what? You die. So food should certainly be something up for consideration as something that we should just help provide to everybody. Now, does it mean that we provide this particular food and this particular food to people? No, I think people should have the choice to select the foods that they want to select or that they believe is the best for them, because people do have certain health conditions and limitations too. We can't just, give you grain and assume, okay, you're good to go now. But it is still a need, and we still need to be cognizant of those things. Water, certainly, I mentioned that earlier during the stream. Maybe we shouldn't profitize our water systems. That makes no flipping sense. Because what does profit models do? They basically respond to shareholders, not necessarily to customers. And for shareholders, for it to be valuable for stocks, if you want to live in the world of stocks, those always have to basically give a return on investment, and it has to be better than the time before. And so you're always straining the system for a better and better and better thing. But guess what? In order for that to happen, you have to cut costs here, maybe pay your employees minimum wage instead of giving them a living wage. And it just is a very dysfunctional system. If you think about it for 2 seconds, guys, and you'll realize how dysfunctional of a system it is. Because if you're always aiming for profits for something, then something else does get cut. It is just a fact of life, and people want to cut corners all the time. That's why we have regulation. That's why there's regulations for buildings, because buildings used to collapse constantly, and people had to start regulating that stuff so that buildings stopped collapsing on people's heads, and people still bought the buildings. I mean, there was no lack of customers there, but there had to be some intervention there because we're greedy. We can be greedy. And that's something that maybe I am recognizing about us, is that, and maybe you guys don't agree with me here, and that's fine. Just let me know what you guys think. I really do believe that if we live under a system that highlights certain innate behaviors, like capitalism highlights greed, it kind of promotes that. It assumes that we are all greedy at the core, and we just have to kind of battle it out. And whoever else's greed will be the greed for the better good. Well, that doesn't make sense, first of all. And two, it does really kind of have a way of inventing people that succeed, at least under this system, that are kind of sociopaths or psychopaths. They have no empathy for others. And these are our leaders. And this is probably why when you think of someone successful, they tend to be not very good people. I can't think of a person that comes to mind that is considered successful in our society where I can be like, you know what? Yeah, they're good. They were good people. I can't. What are the stories that we always hear about people's, biographies after they die or something like that? And they're like, yeah, they were a monster. These people were monsters. But these are the people that we keep thinking of as being successful because we live in a system that highlights that behavior as success. Maybe we should consider different systems that don't highlight that behavior, because yeah, we can all be greedy, but we all have to have a balance too. We have to have a sharing too, so that one or the other doesn't kind of win out. Because if you share too much, you're going to be vulnerable to people stealing from you. You have to protect yourself to some extent, but so we just need to find a balance. And if you don't find a system that helps balance that out, well, you live in a fucking dysfunctional system, which is where we are today. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Aaron says libraries are an example of nationalizing free information, but not removing the private market to do so. Sorry. If capitalists really want to keep stuff, we should nationalize the base product, and then they should compete beyond that. I completely agree. I think that that's kind of a hodgepodge between the socialism and uh, what is it? Capitalism that other countries have adopted. I thought I saw something earlier that I wanted to read. You know what? Matthew Reed, I don't know if they're still here, mentioned earlier that Ireland nationalized the private sector of their healthcare system during the coronavirus outbreak because the constraint on the healthcare system was resources, not costs. Yeah, and I think there was another country that did that too. It was either Spain. Why am I thinking it was Spain or Portugal? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong there. For the Win all day, or FTW all day, says socialism or barbarism. I mean, I think we're kind of, that is the competing thought here. I think we, okay, let me back up. I'm really depressed by the way our society is. It causes so much conflict in my heart because maybe I'm like, bleeding heart liberal type of person, but I just think that we could do better and we should do better for each other, because knowing what I do about how we evolve as creatures, as a species, we didn't do it alone. We relied on our group to get us through these hard living conditions. We, relied on each other to help care for our elderly and our sick. I mean, there's evidence that Neanderthals carried their crippled from place to place. There's evidence of this based off of like how, bones have developed after the injury occurred. And I feel like right now we're in a place where we just go and leave our elderly to die by themselves in nursing homes. Whereas at some point, at least Neanderthals did, and I think there's evidence of Homo sapiens doing this too, used to carry each other so that we weren't left behind. Like, what happened? I don't know what happened. I just feel like maybe we're just a little lost and we need to regain some of our humanity back. And yeah, I know that greed is part of that humanity, but we have to get that balance back so that we can carry each other through the hard times and still thrive as a species. Because guess what? And I think Aaron and I have talked about this from time to time. He's in the chat right now. Aaron, you're going to have to tell me what the word is, because right now I'm at a loss for words, probably because I'm sick. Speaking of, but it's a way to say that we actually aren't resource limited. We have an excess of resources, or a sufficient amount of resources to take care of everybody on the planet. But we are made to think that we are lacking resources. What is the word for this? What is the principle here? Oh, the end of scarcity, right? We are not in a scarcity. There is no scarcity right now. We do have excess. Well, there's a post-scarcity, thank you. We do have excess. Now, do our hospitals have excess right now? No, they are definitely resource limited, especially because of our for-profit model. And maybe the Trump government wanted to be like, well, how can we profitize this stuff first, instead of actually rolling out tests and making sure that this, pandemic was actually called a pandemic, instead of saying, we only have 15 cases, but it'll be gone in a month. Really? 15 cases, and now over 1,000 people have died in the United States alone. Okay. Guys, are you guys as angry as I am? Am I the only one that's pissed off about this? I need some validation. Joseph Green says, feudal capitalism is sold as the engine of progress from pre-industrial societies, but people are not educated on how it had to be regulated for others to benefit from that progress. I just think it's just more of it's not only that, but feudal society just kind of got transferred into another name. We still have landlords that we have to give our quote unquote limited resources to, which is money, which is a figment of our imagination. Do you see how crazy this is? And this is like all the things that are in my head too. Guys, I need help. Sosh, thank you. Sosh says it's very angering too. Yes. Matthew Reed also adds, so in New Zealand, we went into lockdown. They pulled the lockdown. It had 90% support. I can't think of a single other government policy that has that sort of support. Matthew, I think you're right. And I think if you polled our society and or our government, our people in the United States too, I think you might actually see that high of a percentage of going in total lockdown. But we don't know what that looks like right now because our country has refused to do that. I don't have words for how idiotic it is. They're worried about the economy faltering. So they're going to make people get sick and die, which can thereby falter the economy further. Is there logic in this? Maybe someone could tell me what the logic is here. Maya Adkinson says, I live in a low state of rage in general since the last presidential election. I don't have much hope for a change in disposition during the next, sorry, it popped away, election. Yeah, and maybe I'm kind of hopeless about that too. So if you are not from the United States, you probably haven't really been following the Democratic primary. And if you have been following it, then holy crap, you're a better person than I could ever be, as far as like learning about how the world is, because I don't take the time to do the same with other countries. And I used to, but I just kind of dropped off the map there. But if you've been following the Democratic primary, you would know that Joe Biden right now is leading in the primary. I'm pretty convinced that anybody who has voted for Joe Biden has not heard him talk in maybe 5 years, if not longer, because the man has some form of dementia. And, I am not a clinician. I am not a diagnostician, but I know a lot about the brain, hence my channel, of course. And guys, it's textbook as far as some of the dementias are concerned. And there's a lot of them. And I am making a video on this, by the way. I have an idea of how to present it, but I need to have resources. I need to go to the library, and the library is shut. Anyways, it's a mess. I'll figure it out, and you will get your video on dementia, I promise. But the man is not healthy. He is not doing well. And I watched him do this in real time when he was giving his victory speech on Super Tuesday. It was very depressing time. I'm a huge Bernie Sanders supporter. Speaking of, let me show you. I'll show you how big of a huge Bernie Sanders supporter I am. Y'all, this is from 2016. This is I want him to sign this one day. I met Jane Sanders too recently, but this is from 2016. It's my Bernie Sanders pop doll, and I love it. It's my favorite thing in my house. Excuse me. So I have been a very big Bernie Sanders fan for a long time. I recognize that some people don't think he's left enough, and I recognize that for all other countries, European countries, he would probably be smack dab in the middle. It was a very depressing time for me, but I still took some of my attention away from being pressed to listen to Joe Biden. And oh my God, guys, there is no way you can convince me otherwise. But the man lost track of who was who in his family. I don't remember if it was his sister that he confused with his wife or vice versa. Both women were standing behind him. I understand that the media tried to make excuses, but I watched him do this. He went like, hey, where are you? Like, he did go, all right, like kind of like this. But then he looked back at both women and grabbed the wrong woman and said, here's my sister or wife. And it wasn't. It was either the other. But it wasn't the person that he thought it was. People don't make that mistake who aren't having some sort of brain problems. It just doesn't happen. People, especially when they have no history of having that problem, people do have facial recognition blindness. That is a real phenomenon that doesn't necessarily have to do with brain injury or illness. Sometimes it just kind of comes along with, I guess, an illness, brain illnesses like schizophrenia, for instance. Some people will have prosopagnosia with that, but it's quite rare regardless. And he has no history of having that problem, right? He has been able to recognize his family members. These are people that are close to him. He should not have in no way made that mistake unless there is a problem with his brain. And so the entire country is electing a man who I am 99.9% convinced has a form of dementia against Donald Trump. And say what you will about Donald Trump, but he at least is fast on his feet. Yeah, sometimes what he says is just illogical and doesn't make sense, or it's spiteful and like the talking of a very, very, very angry man. But at least it's, he's fast on his feet. Hillary Clinton was fast on her feet. She could contend with that. Can we really consider Joe Biden for the position of president, for somebody to go against Donald Trump, who is vicious when it comes to verbal attacks? He is vicious. He is very caustic in nature too. And so you've got a man who's slow, who cannot seem to construct a coherent sentence together. And it's such a mistake. And I really am convinced that anybody who's voting for him just has not heard him talk or seen him behave. Because I've seen videos from 2015 or 2016. It was when there was one video that Joe Biden was trying to convince people that he had given Bernie Sanders the idea about Medicare for all. Has anybody seen that video? Well, he sounded at least coherent. Yeah, he's lying because Bernie Sanders has been talking about a Medicare for all system like his entire political career. So yeah, it's a lie. Okay. But at least it was a coherent sentence that was constructed around that lie. Now, there's nothing. He only can work off of a teleprompter, and even then, oh my gosh, guys, I don't understand. Okay, eHeller42, which I'm pretty sure is Bacon president. I would vote for you, Bacon. Said you should go on Hardlands Media as a brain expert. You got YouTube videos up the wazoo to lend to your credibility. Unfortunately, I don't know what Hardlands Media is. I should look that up, I guess. For the FTW all day has a little emoji that's laughing and says, that is dope. This is about my little Bernie Sanders doll. I also have a 2016 Bernie action figure, not the big hat one though. I don't know what that means, but I get your sentiment nonetheless. They stream weekly at 6 p.m. Central. Are they on independent media out of Chicago? Weekdays. Okay, yeah, I'll check them out. Do they have a YouTube channel by any chance? Or are they kind of streaming independently? Like, do you have to do a subscription like a paid subscription or something like that. Thank you for bearing with me as far as I'm coughing. Okay, it's on a YouTube channel. Yeah, I'll definitely check them out then. So in my comment section on underneath my videos, because I love you guys. You guys are some of my favorite people in life, and just send me a line and let me know how you're doing, and let me know that you're still alive and there, because I do miss interacting with you guys. And maybe I'll do this more frequently, and definitely we can use the social interaction as much as possible, especially if you are quarantined like I am. Excuse me. If you are not self-quarantined or not like physically, really for real, mandated quarantine, maybe you're getting a little bit more interaction with other people. Please don't. Please consider self-quarantining yourself regardless, because whatever I had, if it was not coronavirus, which I'm like convinced that it is, because I'm still sick actually. It's brutal. It is not comfortable. It's odd. It's an odd illness, the way that it behaves. It's not, I have yet to get any congestion, no cold, nothing. It's just a cough. It's coughing and I can't breathe, and it hurts. It hurts. It hurt my lungs a lot. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of pain in my chest, and I honestly thought I was going to have a heart attack at one point. But I didn't. I'm here and I'm alive. Anyways, consider not going out so frequently. This is not something that you can necessarily wash off your hands. It is transmitted via the air circulating, and that's why you want to reduce your contact with others, because some people are asymptomatic completely. When I thought I got this, at the place I thought I got this, there was nobody around me that I noted as being sick, that was coughing even. So there's definitely people out there that are transmitting this illness and they don't even know it. So please consider staying indoors as much as possible. Open up your windows so you can get some sunlight. If you are pale skinned, you do need sun, vitamin D. If you're not pale skinned, get vitamin D anyways. It's actually pretty good for your bones and stuff. Anyways, so just drop me a comment at any point, especially if I don't do a live feed in a while or anything like that, and just keep me updated because I'm curious. I do have a Twitter account, my Brief Brain Snacks Twitter account. Just say hi too, because I want to make sure that you guys are doing okay and that you're feeling well. And if you do get sick, let me know. I can hopefully give you some advice as far as what I had gone through and how I made it through. I'm thinking I'm making it through at this point. I again do have asthma, so I have an underlying condition that would make something like coronavirus a lot more serious. But I think we can do this together, and I don't want any of you guys to suffer at all, and I hate that. So yeah, just let me know how you're doing. You can also request video content. I'm still taking requests. I haven't gotten a lot in very recently. Nobody's been requesting videos, which kind of has surprised me a bit, because people are very curious about the brain. Maybe I just make too many videos. What do you guys think? Have I touched all the concepts all the time already? Or is there something that you're particularly curious about? Bar soap is making a comeback? Huh. Yes, washing and scrubbing is far more important than disinfecting. That's completely for the FTW all day. Just said that as a comment. So that's why you want to wash your body. If you've been out, definitely continue to practice good hygiene practices that you learned again in elementary school, elementary age, probably at home, some of that too. Definitely try to continue to like clean yourself as much as possible. Bar soap is making a comeback. You know, I have been making my own soap, but I kind of let that slip. And so I just sucked up and got some regular soap. It doesn't smell as good as mine. But yeah, more videos. I do plan, I have already, I don't know if I said this in this stream or if I said it in my other stream that I thought I was streaming for 8 minutes, but I have already done, excuse me, I've already done the research for this video that I have planned for on dementia. I've already started writing the script as well. It's just a matter of now finishing up the script, kind of making it a little bit more watchable, more entertaining for you guys. I don't know. Are you guys interested in how I go through this process of even creating the videos in the first place? I don't know what you're interested in. I think it's would be potentially kind of boring, but you know what? I'm not you guys. So just let me know if you're interested in learning about that too, because it is a process. Let's see. I bet you could do a great video on MK Ultra and other unethical experiments. Well, torrential rage. Have I got a video for you? I've already done something like that. I've done, I don't remember what the video is called. Is Aaron still around? Because he could probably find that video and pop it into the chat screen real fast for you. I don't remember if I talked about MK Ultra in that video. I may not have, because it has been extensively covered in a lot of other places, and so I'm kind of maybe focused on a little bit more obscure videos. Like this was, yeah, you can find the link. Thank you. This is I talked about the pig brain experiment. Are you guys familiar with what happened there with the pigs and how they try to keep the brain alive? Anyways, I had some thoughts on that, and it's also added in that video. I think I did 5. So I only covered like a couple minutes each of these unethical things that have been done in medicine or in psychology and neuroscience as well. Do I behind the scenes of the process? Samuel Gaxiol. I should know your last name. Oh my goodness. Gaxiola? Is that your last name? Do it behind the scenes of the process. I can do that. But yeah, if you think of another thing, or if you want me to add something to that video, I'd be happy to do it. Sometimes I can get a little bit like, well, this is boring, so nobody would want this. But then a lot of people request it, and I'm like, okay, I guess it wasn't as boring as I thought it was. And the reason why I can kind of find certain topics a lot more boring than I think you guys do is because I've covered them so often in all of my coursework and all of the research I do. A lot of these things come up repetitively. And so at times I tend to shy away from like drug videos, for instance, and like illicit substances, just because those have been talked about to death, and I get a little bit tired of the subject. But guess what? You guys don't know about that. You guys don't know how that stuff acts in the brain and why it gives you some of the effects that it does. And so those are fair topics to bring up, because again, I just don't know a lot of the time. Joseph Green, I seem to have a bad nose for topics, but I DM'd you an article that that may make fodder for a video, potentially, maybe, perhaps. I will see that and let you know. Oh, is this an update? Wait. Holy shit. We just overtook China with total cases. Yes, we did. I knew that. And that's with our garbage testing infrastructure. 81,896 USA, 81,284 China. Yeah. This makes me really sad, because we knew it was coming. I mean, we saw it a mile away, and we could have prepared better had we not. This is another problem that I have. I'm just going to go off on a rant here too, so please bear with me. But why is it that we allow a certain subset of the population to dictate how we run everything when they have been wrong all the time on all the things throughout history? And am I just crazy here in thinking that? Like, when has the right, I'm sorry if you are a Republican or whatever. No, I'm not. Just stop being so wrong all the time. And can we de facto default to, I don't know, the people on the left who tend to be right about everything all the time? Am I crazy on this? Like, we're right on human rights. We're right on, when outbreaks occur, we're right on the processes that need to happen. Look at all these right wingers now. Look at all the Senate Republicans now adopting socialism, during this outbreak. As minuscule as they have been on it, they're now adopting Bernie Sanders's ideas, socialism. I mean, again, the left is right. De facto listen to us because we can handle it. We plan. We're planners. You guys are followers on the right. We're planners. That's just how it is. That's how our brains work. Just accept that about yourself and stop listening to lies. Yeah, unfortunately. The package that they did approve of, it does have some okay things in it that will hopefully help a little bit. But E. Heller 42 is right. It's socialism for corporations mostly, though. And because, of course, we kind of tend to default bail out corporations as if they're living entities for some reason. Wonder what decision made that happen. That's why we should try to reverse Citizens United, by the way. But what about Venezuela? Yeah, what about it? Yeah, propaganda is such a powerful instrument, and it is used for nefarious purposes. I don't know if you saw me on Shannon's channel a while ago when I was talking about the propaganda videos that I was making. I said, propaganda, yeah, generally speaking, it's pretty shady and probably shouldn't be done. But I'm not immune to thinking that maybe we on the left should actually employ it as a technique, because it does bypass a lot of those like thinking things, right? It bypasses your thinking centers and goes right to kind of these core motivations and core emotions that we have. But again, a lot of the propaganda, sorry, I hit the microphone, but a lot of the propaganda that is effective is fear-based, because that is such a reactive emotion. And I'm not sure if I want to get people afraid just so that they can kind of join me on my side, A fearful society, again, is not a functioning society, and it's not healthy, and it's not conducive to like progress. So I don't know. I'm conflicted here. So, maybe you guys have some ideas on that, on how we can kind of, talk to people about the things that we need to have happen so that we all are functioning, so that we all know that, we are taking care of each other. And so that, I don't know, we feel like we live in a society again, if we ever did in the first place. Joseph, okay, I'm going to get to the question, but Joseph Green says, socialists never learned how to maximize the use of the media of each society. I don't know. I think, so I've been kind of thinking about it, and I think some socialists have been, but unfortunately they have been authoritarian in nature. So they've been like nationalistic and authoritarian, and any authoritarian regime, regardless if it's capitalist or socialist or communist, is not good. And so maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, or maybe you've been thinking about this a little bit, but do you think that socialism is particularly vulnerable to nefarious actors? So people that are that lean towards authoritarianism at some point. Maybe, kind of they bamboozle their way up in the hierarchy that actually shouldn't exist really in a socialist society. But I don't know. I'm kind of curious. I haven't seen any proponents on like which system is more vulnerable to authoritarianism, because authoritarianism is the rot in any society. Period. It is, and it does lean towards that greedy, individualistic sensibility as well. And that's why capitalism, I feel like we don't recognize authoritarianism very well, because we're awash in it and we've lived under it for our entire lives, and our parents have for their entire lives, and subsequently, and so forth and so forth. Fascism too. Is there a particular, I guess, type of society or type of structure, financial structure, societal structure that's particularly vulnerable to fascism as well? I mean, I'm just curious. Do you think socialism is more vulnerable to fascism over capitalism? Again, I think that it complicates things when we don't really have a lot of models for socialism that we believe in or that we read about often, that we live under. I think there was a society, South American society, that was socialist, and they thrived for thousands of years. They were one of the longest living societies on Earth. So that's a very successful socialist society that nobody talks about. And maybe nobody talks about it because, like, I can't even remember if it was the Mayans or if it was the Aztecs, but it's somebody in South America or Central America. I'm bad at geography, guys. See, I'm not very smart. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think is more vulnerable? I've had theories like maybe socialism is more vulnerable to those things, because maybe socialists are more likely to give people chances and to think that people have changed their nature, kind of going for like, oh, we just generally defer to the goodness of a human over the possibility of them being bad. But then I go and realize, well, wait a minute. Let's take the United States. And maybe you'll disagree with me here, but the US has always been a fascist regime. If you ever have a constitution that was constructed from it's in the bones, and it was constructed to basically exclude a whole subset of the population as not even being human, for heaven's sakes. And if you have, this is society that was built. It was in the structure. It's like in the bones of it is a fascist model already built in. But we are capitalists. So have we always been a fascist? And we just haven't realized it. Is that why we can't realize fascism often in our own society or even in other societies? Are we quick to pointing it out in one place and failing to and neglecting it in another? It's like we have hemi-neglect, which is a pretty interesting phenomenon that I do want to talk about at some point. It's basically where people neglect, even though they can see from both eyes, they're not blind or anything like that. They neglect one field. It's like it doesn't exist, and they don't realize they're neglecting it, which is the interesting part of this. So yeah, I want to talk about this at some point in a video. Okay, so Samuel, sorry, your last name, Gaxiola. Fascism takes root with hypernationalism and organizing people around national identity instead of class. It's not only instead of class, it's about creating not only a national identity, it's creating the in-group. And there's some term for this, and I am so sorry if you are a sociologist and know all of these things. If you are, let me know what the term is. But it's where you basically create, an identity for your group. but you also create an identity for the excluded group. And so it's creating an in-group and out-group simultaneously, or through different means. That there's definitely a name for this. And I had just read about it the other day, actually, so I should actually remember this. So let me know. Yeah, if there's anything that you can learn from this pandemic that has happened, and I'll agree with Joseph Green here. The people have all the power. We just don't realize it. I agree. I think if there's anything that you can get from this pandemic, is that you are starting to see billionaires and politicians kind of panic, because they're starting to go, oh, wait, people are going to realize that we could do XYZ, even though we told them it was impossible to do. People are going to realize that we don't have to lock up people. We don't have to put people in prison. We can release prisoners, currently existing prisoners. These are all just the choices we have made. And once people start realizing that these are choices we made for our own selfish means, they're not going to accept those choices anymore. And that's where I'm thinking we really need to take to heart this situation and kind of use the situation to our own advantage in a collective sense, because we have a lot more power than I think any of us have ever realized, and it's coming to light under these circumstances. It really is. So that's just something that I hope we all are capable of doing, and that we can encourage each other to do, because we can get better pay in the United States. We can get a universal healthcare system. These are all the just choices we just have assumed just couldn't happen. There was a police department that said basically, oh, we're no longer going to arrest people for non-essential things. We're only going to focus on essential crimes. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't you always say that all the crime was essential, and that's why you had to do so many arrests in the first place? So now you're telling me you lied. It's kind of like, okay, now's our time to wake up. Now is the best time to start taking this as a sign that we can make these changes. And I hope that leaves you with a good note. If you play video games like I do, I play Borderlands 3, and there was a download that came out today, a patch and an update and a DLC. So I am going to go do that because I'm really excited about it. But maybe we'll do this again soon. Maybe if you like it. I'm so happy that you guys stuck with me. Brad Bloom, I think you just are a little late to the party because I haven't seen you talking. So I want to get some of your comments and hear, because I see you now. Brad says, absolutely, this could be a huge opportunity for fundamental change. Joseph, thank you for being here. He says, gotta go. Thank you. I'll see you next time. I did see Bernie Sanders roasting the establishment on the Senate floor yesterday, and that was pretty cool. Which should I get, PlayStation, Xbox, or PC? Well, I unfortunately can't afford a PC, a gaming PC, but if you can afford that, I think that would be the best device for you to use for any gaming purposes, just because I personally am a big fan of modding games, not to cheat, but to make the experience a little bit better, maybe increase the visuals, or I played Fallout for a long time, and I just built houses on that game, and I couldn't have done it without the mods because I wanted to have like cool looking material. And you can only do that on a PC really effectively. You can't really do that on a console. Hi, Ickis. That's my dog. That's my boo-boo. I call him boo-boo. All right, so thank you guys for joining me, and maybe we'll do this again. I will have another video. I prefer, Brad, to answer your question, I prefer, as far as a console is concerned, PlayStation. I don't really like the controller. The controller hurts my hands, but just the performance on the PlayStation is better. I used to have an Xbox and it crashed all the time, and I don't really have that problem with the PlayStation. It just seems to be a better built machine. I hope that keep up with me as far as how you're doing and how you're feeling. I know that all of us are kind of scared now too, because there's a lot of things in the economy that are unstable. Maybe we'll talk about kind of those fears next time. Thank you for allowing me to also vent. I appreciate that so much. And you guys are so great. I'll talk to you later though. Bye.